Kevin's been gone 26 years and he was 25, so he's been gone longer than he was here with us. We feel he is no longer with us, but we still want to find him and, put him to rest.
In 2019, the Williston Herald reported that Kevin Mahoney's disappearance is the oldest missing persons case open in Fargo, North Dakota. A young man leaves a house full of friends on foot and then disappears. Decades later, the investigation is still open and active, but with many questions unanswered and with many wondering why so little progress has been made. Was the case mishandled by police because he was a long hair, or has a killer gotten away with murder all these years? It's time to turn on the searchlight for Kevin Mahoney. Welcome back to Brain Scratch Searchlight. I'm John Lordan. Thank you so much for caring about these cases like I do. Before we start today, I want to thank Marissa Jones and the Vanished podcast for their comprehensive work on this case. If not for their coverage, we wouldn't be able to fill in as many gaps as we can because the media coverage on this case hasn't been very strong up until this point. As always, I'll have a link to all of our sources in the description box down below. Kevin Mahoney was known to friends and family as a great guy. He belonged to a large family, including his mother Judy and his 7 brothers and sisters. He was close to all of them. In 1993, at the age of 25, Kevin was living with his mother in Dilworth, Minnesota, just a few miles from the state line crossing into North Dakota and the nearby town of Fargo. Wikipedia tells us that Dilworth is one of the core cities of the Fargo-Moorhead metro area, and is on the eastern border of Moorhead. Dilworth is home to the historic Starlight Motel and the Dilworth Rail Yard, one of the BNSF Railway's largest and busiest facilities in Minnesota. Back in 1993, the population was about 2,600 people, roughly half of how many live there now. Besides his love of painting and fishing, Kevin worked on remodeling and construction jobs during the day, and then he liked to party at night with some of his buddies in Fargo. Fargo is a much larger town than Dilworth. Aside from what we all know from the popular television show and movie by the town's name, according to the 2020 census, its population was over 125,000 people, making it the most populous city in the state. Back in 93, the population was around 77,000 people, but still a considerable change in pace and lifestyle than Kevin's life was back in Dilworth. Kevin didn't have a car of his own, but he would catch rides with people he knew to get where he needed to get. On September 30th, 1993, Kevin came to his mother's house with a friend of his named Ben Kukowski. After visiting with his mother Judy for a bit, the two left for Ben's house in Fargo. Ben was working on renovating the house to sell it. Kevin would stay with him on and off, helping with the remodeling work. The two would work until around 8 or 9 o'clock at night, then stop and drink with friends that would come by. Ben's house was a bit of a party house. A few days passed, and the family began to wonder what Kevin was up to. He was described by the family as generally a mama's boy and would call or visit his mother often. It wasn't totally unusual for him to be gone for days at a time, but he was usually in touch, or the family could call around and find him easily. His sister, Michelle Elsenpeter, went over to Ben's to check on her brother, but he wasn't there. I just knew right away something was wrong, Michelle said. The family called his friends, but no one had seen Kevin recently. They called hospitals in the area, but no luck. After multiple phone calls and questions asked, Kevin's family started to piece together some of what happened. The last time anyone spoke with Kevin was on the night of October 2nd, 1993. He was at a party at Ben's house. The family was told that around 1 a.m. he left the party, saying that he was going to his brother's house in Moorhead. Moorhead is about a half hour away on foot, but only about 5 minutes by car. No one the family spoke to knew if Kevin was picked up or even what direction he walked off in as he left. Kevin's brother was actually out of town that night, so no one could even verify that Kevin made it to his brother's home if they tried to. On the 7th, Michelle went to a police station to report Kevin missing. When she did, she was also able to fill them in on what she had learned from his friends. Investigators tried to corroborate their story, but couldn't find anybody that saw Kevin walking on the road that evening. When Ben and his friend and roommate Daryl were questioned, they stated that the last time they saw Kevin was actually September 30th in the afternoon. Kevin and Ben had gotten into an argument about fixing plaster in the house, and Kevin became angry and left. Both men said they assumed that he was going to his brother's house, but once again, they didn't see which direction he left in. Investigators called detox centers, jails, and homeless shelters trying to find Kevin. Nobody reported seeing him. The second time Ben was questioned was a few weeks later. Again, he stated that the last time he saw Kevin was on the 30th, but his story changed a bit. This time, he said that the disagreement happened in the evening and that it was over a window in the house that had been measured wrong. He said that Kevin left drunk. He also said that Kevin mentioned earlier that he would go to see his uncle. Ben also said there were two people there when this happened, Kevin's friend Troy and Troy's girlfriend Lynette. They had recently moved to St. Cloud, Minnesota, and unfortunately couldn't be reached by the investigators. Ben was asked to take a lie detector test, which he did, and he passed. Investigators were also given access to Ben's house, but they didn't notice anything suspicious. Ben's answers changed yet again when he was questioned a third time. This time, he stated that the last day he saw Kevin was on October 1st, and it was around 7 p.m., and he was very intoxicated. Troy called and asked if the two could help him and Lynette load up items for their move. Ben said that they helped for a while and patched up holes in the house as well. When Ben left, Kevin was still there, and he assumed that Troy would take him back to his mother's house. When Troy and Lynette were finally tracked down, their story was totally different from Ben's. Lynette said she and Troy stopped at Ben's house in her car around 10 p.m. Around midnight, she, along with Troy, Ben, and Kevin, went to Troy's apartment to fix one of the doors. Without the right paint color, they were unable to do the job, and she drove them back to Ben's around 1 a.m. She ended up back at her apartment where she slept for the night before going to work the next morning. When she came home for lunch the next day, she noticed that Ben's car was parked at her apartment, which she found odd. While she was there, she didn't see him. Later that night, she and Troy went to Ben's house and stayed the night, but noticed that Kevin wasn't there. She said that the last time she saw Kevin was the next morning on October 1st, and he was intoxicated. He said that he was sad that his friend Troy was leaving. Troy's story was basically the same, but when he was asked about the fight over the window, he said he knew of that incident, but it had taken place days before Kevin went missing. He also gave investigators a way to corroborate that story, saying that Ben used his credit card to pay wherever he went. They could just look at his statements and see when the window was bought. Unfortunately, there are no records showing that this lead was ever followed up on or that Ben was ever confronted about all of his varying stories. A friend of Kevin's named Lene told Kevin's sister Michelle that Kevin called her before he disappeared asking for a ride, but Lene couldn't give him one because she had to go to work. 3 weeks after his disappearance, Lene went to Ben's house to look for herself. The front door was unlocked, so she went in. There was no one home, so she started looking, and in her search, she found a pair of men's pants with a blood stain on them. The jeans were not Kevin's size, but he was known to wear them baggy. In 1994, Ben was questioned about those jeans. He said that they weren't his, but might have been left by one of his transient friends. In 2007, a request was put in to have the DNA from the jeans tested. Nothing in the police file shows that that request was ever fulfilled. Kevin and Ben had worked hard to renovate Ben's house, but after Kevin disappeared, Ben trashed the place. As of 2017, the family says Ben has been homeless for some time. Of course, with a case of this nature, you have rumors just running rampant. One states that there was a confidential informant that came forward in December of 1993 claiming that a man named Lonnie had killed Kevin. Allegedly, this information stated that Kevin and Lonnie had words in the parking lot of a wedding before a fight broke out. No police reports of that incident exist. However, Lonnie does exist. When he was questioned about the incident, he said that he didn't know what happened to Kevin and he didn't care. Lonnie died in 2013. In April of 1994, Judy called investigators and told them about a conversation she had with a woman named Shirley. Shirley claimed that she was at the party the night that Kevin disappeared and that he had been thrown away. The man named Daryl, who was referred to as Ben's roommate, was tracked down in 1997. When questioned, he said that the last time he saw Kevin was at Ben's home. He and his girlfriend had shown up, but Ben didn't feel well and didn't want to party that night, so the couple decided to hit the bars instead. Before they left, Kevin asked Daryl for a ride the next day at noon. When he returned the next day to offer Kevin that ride, Kevin was nowhere to be found. Ben stated that the two had gotten into an argument and that Kevin left. An unbelievable claim would come in 2009 from a man named Scott. Scott had a friend named Phil who was in bad health, having been diagnosed with hepatitis C. He stated that if he was going to die because of it, he wanted to write a letter to Kevin's family to unburden himself. He went on to say that he and Kevin had been involved with the Mexican mafia and owed them money. Phil was told to settle the debt, he had to kill Kevin. When Phil was questioned in state prison, he stated, quote, "If you think I had anything involved with that, you're barking up the wrong tree." He also said that another prisoner had probably made up the story to get a lighter prison sentence. It has been said that Kevin had been killed and put into a wall in the house or in a section of the basement where new concrete had been poured. So in 2011, investigators, with the help of an anthropologist, started digging in the basement. After going down only a few inches, they hit a pipe and stopped excavating. Another spot was checked, a hole that had been found behind some sheetrock and insulation. It led to a crawl space under the patio. Sand from that area was vacuumed and studied. The anthropologist came to the conclusion that the ground had not been disturbed since the patio had been built, and there was no evidence of Kevin there to be found. Today, the family works to keep Kevin in people's minds, especially his sister Michelle. She made a vow to their now late mother Judy that she would never give up looking for Kevin. Every year on the anniversary of his disappearance, the family stands at University Drive North and 12th Avenue North in Fargo, holding signs with Kevin's pertinent information. They remind people of who he was, talk about their time with him, and try to make sure that his name stays in the public consciousness. They also hope to be able to put a billboard up in downtown Fargo near I-29 and I-94 about this case. Quote, "A lot of people don't realize he's still missing. It would spread the word more. So many people would see it, and maybe we'd get more tips," his sister Michelle said. A GoFundMe has been started to help with just that. At the moment, they have reached just over $1,700 towards their goal of $3,600. Michelle said the family needs closure from their almost 30-year mystery. Quote, "What if it was your son, or your brother, or your uncle? You would want to know what happened." Kevin stands at 5 foot 10 inches tall and weighs around 165 pounds. He has brown hair and blue eyes. His hair was past his shoulders at the time of his disappearance. He may also use the aliases Chuck Johnson, Troy Stephenson with a PH, or Troy Stevenson with a V. The Fargo Police Department urges anyone who has information about the disappearance of Kevin Mahoney to come forward by calling its Criminal Investigations Division at 701-241-1405. You can remain anonymous. Please share this video with friends and acquaintances in North Dakota and Minnesota to help us raise awareness. If you want to support the family, there's a link below for their GoFundMe, which will help put up that billboard to help raise awareness to this case. On behalf of our amazing supporters here at LordanArts, we have also made a donation to help make that billboard a reality. Since 2015, we have always run limited commercial ads for the benefit of the viewers and the families that we're trying to help. Obviously, we can't do that without support. A big thank you to PayPal supporters Hillary Green and Brandy Fry. If you'd like to be part of the team that helps us make these videos and donations like we made today, please visit LordanArts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee like Crimson Topaz recently did. We really appreciate your support on our mission to run as few ads as possible and help as many cases as we can. Thank you to our sources, ValleyNewsLive.com, The Charlie Project, Facebook, KVRR.com, Inforum.com, The Doe Network, NamUs, TheDickinsonPress.com, SonicTremors.wordpress.com, Unquestionably Criminal, BiggestUSCities.com, Wikipedia, and of course, The Vanished Podcast. Let's keep those eyes, ears, and hearts open and looking for Kevin Mahoney. I'll see you here again soon on the LordanArts channel.